So this story, guys, I find really, really interesting. Now, I've been very critical of this notion that there are any populist Republicans. Because take a look at, say, Josh Hawley. He's viewed as like the poster boy of populist Republicans in the Senate. But when you look at his voting record, it's super duper similar to every other Republican. Like, maybe there's one or two issues where he might deviate slightly from GOP orthodoxy, but he's still mostly a free market guy, still mostly anti-union. Sometimes he might give rhetoric to imply that's not the case, but again, the voting record trumps everything. No pun intended by saying trumps. So he's just one example. J.D. Vance is another example. I'm a populist. He says he wants to increase the child tax credit, but when they just had the vote on extending the child tax credit, he was nowhere to be found. He literally didn't go to the vote. 44 Republicans voted against it, and he didn't even show up, right? He's a populist, but he didn't support the PRO Act, the biggest piece of pro-union legislation. So it's just not true, right? Now, having said that, when I say there are no populist Republicans, what I mean is elected Republicans. That's what I mean. They're fake populists if they're populist at all, right? But here we have somebody who, he's not a politician. This is, a political commentator. And this guy, we actually had him on Crystal Kyle and Friends a while back. He means it. He's actually a populist Republican. So in other words, he's like conservative on social issues, but then on economic issues, he likes the New Deal. He likes FDR. He likes basic minimum social democracy type stuff. But now this guy has turned on Trump. Okay, so here we go. Quote, electoral malpractice. Populist right pundit rips Trump for morally gross praise of Musk firing workers who wanted to strike. So we're talking about Sohrab Ahmari. Again, we had him on Crystal Kyle and Friends a while ago. But the clip here is, of course, here, I'll just play it for you. This is Trump and Elon laughing about firing workers who were protesting for better pay, better working conditions, better health care, et cetera.
I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So every one of you is gone and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it.
So, I mean, look, this is billionaire, robber baron, oligarch type shit. That's what this is. There's the only people in the country who'd be laughing about people losing their jobs simply because they want to strike for better pay, better working conditions, better health care, et cetera. So Sohrab Ahmari comes out and says, I won't mince words. This is hideous. And it makes it harder and harder for me to try to imagine wringing genuine populism out of Trump 2024. He continues, Trump won a decisive marginal share of union households in 2016 by lambasting corporate bosses. Now he's chuckling with Elon, an oligarch, about firing striking workers. It's electoral malpractice in addition to being morally gross. Damn. So they continue here in the article and say, Ahmari, who is also a former Wall Street Journal editor, has long fought against traditional conservative values in the Republican Party and has heralded the populism coming from MAGA as the ideology he believes the GOP should embrace. Those who think the conservative movement has the solutions to the nation's crises should vote for a conventional GOP candidate. But those who believe the conservative movement is part of the problem should support Donald Trump, wrote Ahmari in 2022, calling for Trump to yet again be the GOP nominee for president. Ahmari came to prominence during the Trump years as he promoted Trump's agenda and actively fought against traditional Republicans. He and conservative writer David French had a lengthy spat in the media that culminated in a public debate moderated by the New York Times columnist Ross Douthat. Ahmari has also made headlines for advocating that the GOP move away from its traditional embrace of limited government and instead use government as a tool to enforce its socially conservative agenda. So look, if I'm going to be kind to this guy here, what I would say is, look, he probably pointed at some limited things that Trump did on trade that he liked, that he viewed as genuinely populist. So, for example, Trump ran against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the new trade deal that Obama was trying to do. It's basically, it would have been like the new NAFTA, except much more wide-ranging and involving different countries. So Trump ran against that. Then when he was president, he axed NAFTA and did a new NAFTA, right? And you could point to certain provisions of that and say, yeah, I guess it's better than the old NAFTA. But then there were other provisions that were literally straight out of the TPP that they put in the new NAFTA. So he sort of replaced one bad NAFTA with another bad NAFTA. So it wasn't really as populist or protectionist as one might think. So, but if I'm being kind to him, I would say, okay, he likes that aspect. He likes the the tariffs on China, which is a policy that also, by the way, Biden continued. He likes those things. He thinks those are populist. But here's the problem overall, though. You have to really work hard to cherry pick any aspects of Trump's presidency from 2016 to say he's populist. So as you all know, he outsourced 200,000 manufacturing jobs. His biggest legislative accomplishment was a tax cut where 83% of the benefits went to the top 1% over the long run. That same bill incentivized outsourcing. He did the big dog and pony show where he pretended to protect these jobs from the carrier factory. What happened a year later? They ended up shipping the jobs overseas anyway, while at the same time shaking down taxpayers and getting a subsidy that Trump approved. So, like, he's just not a populist. He destroyed the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is probably one of the best government agencies which looks out for the American people, right? He took $1 million from the predatory payday loan industry and then loosened the regulations on them and dropped the court cases into them. He took a tremendous amount of money from billionaire donors and effectively did their bidding. Like, that's what he's been going around on the campaign trail now. He's been talking to rooms full of rich donors and telling them, if you guys give me more money, I'll give you more tax cuts. I mean, it's out in the open. It's out in the open how gross and corrupt he is, right? So, I don't want to be an asshole. I'm happy this guy is basically now coming out and saying, ain't no fucking populism here, bro. Ain't no populism here, and this is gross, what he's saying. I'm happy he's saying that, but what I would also say to him is, any real, sober, serious analysis of Trump's record, you would have known a long time ago that he's not a real populist, right? Again, maybe you could say that not cutting Social Security, not cutting Medicare, and sort of stressing those facts, maybe you can make the argument that that was a hint of populism, but overall, looking at the record in its totality, nobody can in good faith say this is populist. And in fact, as we've pointed out to you before, guess what happened within the last few years? 800,000 manufacturing jobs coming back here. Guess who that happened under? Right? So, but again, he's one of these guys who I think he lets the social issue stuff override the economic stuff, even though he pretends like he doesn't. Right? That's the big thing. The social issues, he's pro-choice, for example. He views anybody as being pro-choice as, oh my God, it's morally abominable, etc. And it's like, okay, but if you prioritize that over the economic stuff, then you cannot lean into the fact that you think you're a populist, because you're not. The other point I'd make is this. Look, to any extent that you think that you're truly about this, you're truly about having New Deal economics being put back in place, guys, the answer is simple. Tim Walz is now on the ticket for the Democrats, right? That this is the person who has the best record from an economic perspective in the entire country as a governor, right? So if you really are a populist, the decision is kind of made for you. So it'll be interesting to see if he makes that full shift, because clearly he ain't feeling what Trump is selling now. That's for damn sure. That's for damn sure. And this is the correct reaction. By the way, do you know the dishonest reaction from right-wing commentators about this? The dishonest reaction is, the UAW is trying to shut down free speech by going after Trump and Elon for their free speech on this phone call. And it's like, no, the issue is the UAW is saying, you guys are casually admitting to violating labor law. That's what you're doing. So we're going to come after you for those violations of labor law. They're trying to take an issue about workers' rights, about labor law, and turn it into, you're just anti-free speech. It's so dishonest. And thankfully, Sorab is not going down that path, and he's calling a spade and saying, this guy's not a populist, this is grotesque. Exactly right. So now for the rest of the so-called populist right, the decision's been made for you. Will you be honest enough to admit it, and will you walk away from the fake populists? Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.